What up, world, and welcome to another episode of Beer Talk Now. I'm your host, D. Neal, and on today's episode, I'm here in Temescal Brewing in North Oakland, the town, with the Bay Area's own craft brewer, Mr. Josh Diggs. What's going on with you, man?
Man, thank you for having me, brother. How you doing?
Man, appreciate you coming out first and foremost. I know that with you and I always was following you on Instagram, and then it hit me when I saw myself in the video that you posted from Fresh Fest 2019. We can't wait till Fresh Fest 2021. We come in Fresh Fest 2021. Come on, COVID, die down for me.
It was lit. It was lit.
But when I saw, I was like, oh man, this dude was right next to me filming the whole thing. The Knuck If You Buck came on, that crime mob, and the place went crazy. So it was a great thing, man. But let's get into it. Like, how did you get started in craft beer? Like, what was your experience in that?
Man, my experience in craft beer was when I was real young. I was involved in this program through City College at Berkeley, which allowed me to take certain classes at Cal. So on campus, they had this thing called Beat the Clock. Whatever time you showed up, that's what you would pay for your pitcher of beer.
That sounded like a beautiful thing right there.
So, you know, I was there every day at 3 o'clock sharp. You know what I mean?
3 o'clock, three
o'clock sharp.
$3 for a pitcher of beer.
Please believe I was there every single day.
Man.
And they had, back then, the craft beer scene wasn't really too big yet, but they had a lot of Pyramid beers because that was what was in the area. You know, Pyramid over there near Gilman was like the big one. It was like kind of like very similar to like Gordon Biersch.
Got you.
So it was their Hef and their Curveball IPA. And then down the street, there was another place called Rallies, and they had like Racer 5. And then, you know, from there, man, I don't know whatever else I wanted to put in my tank at the time. But that was my initial introduction to craft beer.
Gotcha.
You know.
And so from there, like, what beer was it? I know you had the Racer 5, the Pyramid. Shout out to the Apricot Ale, the Hef. I mean, everybody was drinking that. Like, you know, I just talked to head brewer at Stills and Hop, Justin Green. He said the same thing. He was like, him and his wife would go to the Pyramid so much in Berkeley that they was like, man, you don't even need to take the tour. What beer do you want? Yep. But what was that beer that really put you in a perspective of like craft beer could be a career and be just a choice where it's like, I can make a living off of this?
Oof. That's a real good question. Well, probably Drake's.
Okay.
You know, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, Drake. So, you know, after I didn't finish school, so I went straight into like working in retail and then later on in finance.
Gotcha.
So I was working for the Federal Reserve, well, for Loomis, like an armored truck company.
Okay.
And I was working in Milpitas, and they had like a little corner store, and they had. I remember one time I came in there to get some Red Stripe. You know, that's what I was drinking at the time, a lot of Red Stripe.
Shout out to the Red Stripe.
You know what I'm saying? They had some Drakes, and then it says San Leandro. I'm like, oh, let me see what this is about.
Gotcha.
And then from there, that's what I really started. That was the one craft brewery that I started showing up a lot at, was Drake's.
Now, you talking about so you went to the Barrel House in San Leandro?
Yep,
okay.
Because I live in that area.
Okay.
You know what I mean? At the time I was living in San Leandro.
Shout out John Galooly out there in the Barrel House, head brewer. Yep.
So that was like the first place that I went to. I was like, oh, this is, you know, all right, this is cool. This is local. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was definitely Drake's was huge for me. So
from that to becoming, and I know it's a lot of in between, so we definitely will talk about it. But
there's a big story in between all that.
So from the first time you actually worked at a brewery or actually got involved in that, what was that? Where was that at? Did you start here in Temescal as the brand ambassador, or did you?
Nope.
You started somewhere else and then you transitioned over here when they opened up, like, 3 years ago? So, I want to say.
If you guys have time for a short story.
Hey, let's go ahead, man. We got time.
Backtrack a little bit.
Yeah, by all means.
I was always kind of involved in music. So worked at Rasputin, and, you know, I was like doing the consignment with a lot of the artists there. So my job there was like all the local rappers would come in and drop off their albums on consignment, and then from there I ended up kind of picking up some gigs with artists, like some bigger artists, because back then independent record stores were big.
Yeah.
So I kind of went from music, then started doing finance later on, and then came back to music. So what happened was I ended up going up on tour.
That's what's up.
With a really big reggae artist named J Boog.
Okay.
And it was like a dream come true. So, you know, and the second tour that I was on, things didn't go as planned. You know what I mean? It was me and the tour manager who's good people. Yeah. You know, we were like kind of bumping heads. And I remember one time we were in North Carolina and I took off. I ghosted. We had like an hour window, and the first thing I did was go to like a brewery that was in the area.
Wow.
So I came back with all this beer, and he's like, "Diggs, where were you?" And I'm like, "Oh, like I had to go get some beer." And he's like, "You know, you're not gonna come back on this tour next year." He's like, "You know what you should do? You should get a job at all these damn breweries you like to look at." And that's exactly what I did, man. As soon as I came off tour, I went on Indeed.com and I seen a posting, Bay Area brewery tours. And it said, "Will train." Because all the other beer jobs that I seen, I knew firsthand I wasn't going to go back to working at the bank.
I got you.
That was out.
Right.
So I was like, "Oh, will train." I applied. I met up with the guy. His name is Austin. The company's owned by a couple named what is their name?
It's all right. Take time.
Mindy and John own Bay Area brewery tours.
Okay.
And I applied, showed up in a suit. That's how, you know, I was used to working at the bank. And he's like, "You don't know much about beer," but he actually said it. He's like, "You don't know much about beer, but like, I'm so glad that you're not a white guy with a beard and a flannel."
Wow.
And then from there, like, I just learned as much as I could about beer. I started doing the brewery tours. And from there, I met everyone, you know, at Harmonic, at Magnolia.
Shout out Ed. Shout out Dave. You must have met Dave in Magnolia.
Yeah, Dave at Magnolia. You know, Ron at Thirsty Bear. Okay. So that's how I got in. Was doing these brewery tours.
Wow.
And then I would show up to the breweries to do these tastings, and so then like there was just networking from there. You know. And then so that's how I got in.
Man, and I mean, you don't see too many jobs nowadays that'll say "we'll train." Like that's
none of them did actually.
Wow,
none of them. Every posting I looked at is on Indeed was like must have experience, this, that, and then when I found one and it said willing to train, I was like, oh, and it's a walking tour, so I get to drink on the job. Like it's a no brainer.
So you would walk around, show people the brewery.
Yep.
Pour some. Yep. Were they doing flights at that time or okay?
Flights.
So you pour the flights. You talk to them about the notes, the characters, the aromas, all that stuff that you would get, and straight into drink. And how long did you do that before you came here and became brand ambassador here at Temescal?
I was doing that on the weekends for about 6 months.
Okay.
And then I was trying to do both. And it just wasn't working. Man. You know what I mean? Like when Temescal first opened, we hit the ground running. So I was doing the brewery tours over there from like 11 to 3, all the way in the dog patch. And then my shift here would start at 4 o'clock. It just killed me.
Yeah, so, now with the traffic too on top of that.
Yeah.
Craziness.